In the real world, you know it's not that way. Not that it isn't a jungle out there. The truth is, the chances of finding yourself in a real shootout are increasing. It may be you dodging bullets, not some actor. So you think about it. What if you got shot? In the movies, a guy can get beaten, shot at, even stabbed, and get up and still live. Pure fiction, yeah, most of the time. But the reality is, people have survived a whole lot worse. Why? One thing: the will to live, the determination to do whatever you gotta do to survive. Hey, doctors see it all the time. They may not be able to explain it, but patients are alive today who weren't given a chance to make it. Then there's the ATF agents like you. People who live through situations that make the movie seem tame. Call them miracles if you want. I'd say it's something else. But judge for yourself. In the program you're about to see, agents tell their own stories about living and about survival. They're not Superman, and they're not Rambo. They're real people like yourself who, faced with death, chose to live.
This is one of those stories that I never thought would happen to me. I thought I was sharper than this, but I tell you what happened. I walked in on a robbery in progress, and suddenly I found myself in a situation. I always thought I could shoot if I had to. Yeah, I thought I could, but I never knew if I would or not, for sure.
I remember firing my weapon. Nothing. It's my nightmare. I heard that sound, that click. I was out of ammunition. Then I heard a shot, and I felt pain in my right chest. A burning sensation, my flesh burning.
To me, it took forever, and it was very professional, if you will, inside. All the other shootings that I've been involved in, you hear a lot of screaming, a lot of cussing, a lot of yelling, and this one, you didn't hear anything except the rounds going off inside.
He pulled a handgun from his boot and began shooting me point blank. We were touching each other, and that he shot 5 times. He hit me once in the chest and once in the right thigh. He hit my partner in the hand. My partner, Bob Valdez, tried to break it up, and he took one in the hand.
I didn't hear the sound of my gun, and I couldn't hear my gun recoiling at all. I didn't hear any sound, but I knew that I knew the gun was going off. But the guy was just standing there, and there was nothing to let me know that I was even hitting him.
One thing I knew I couldn't do was panic. I had to assess and logically think what was going on. I knew as the bullet passed through and I woke up, I was still alive. And I knew that if I kept my wits, I could get out of this, or at least have a fighting chance of getting out of this.
It's very reasonable to think that just because you've been shot, you're not going to die. There is a risk of dying from certain types of gunshot wounds, but the fact that you know you have been shot in and as of itself is a substantial indication that You have to worry, but you need not necessarily be at risk of dying.
The unfortunate fact is this. 20 years ago, agents could reasonably expect to retire without ever having to fire their service revolvers in the line of duty. Nowadays, it's a different story. New agents have to realize that before their 20-year career is up, there's a strong possibility that they will be involved in a firefight. In a critical incident, the will to survive can be life-saving. In peak stress conditions, we are capable of pumping up tremendous strength. But now is the time to start preparing for it. Now is the time to start inoculating yourself for the time that you are involved in a life and death situation.
And I remember looking, I was kind of grasping for things to motivate me, you know, to get back in the fight. And I remember looking at the floor of the bus, and I noticed how nasty and dirty it was, and I thought about if I fell there on that floor, that could be exactly where I die, where my life ends, on a nasty bus floor. And I got mad, and then I thought about my wife and about my children, and I thought about the distance. You know, I even computed the distance from where that was happening to where my home in the suburbs was, and thought about how bad I'd like to be home right then with them. And I got mad then. I realized that if I didn't fight right then, I was never going home again.
Here's how a critical incident goes down. The first phase can perhaps be conceptualized as, here comes trouble. You're going into a situation that you know has the potential to escalate into a life or death situation.
It was a friendly atmosphere. I could tell by their eyes and their facial expressions, no problem. The cocaine was on the table. I tested it. I told them the money was in the car, at which time tension started to build up a little bit when Ariel went to get the money. Several seconds later, he came back. Tension started to ease again. Ariel handed me the money. I started to count it, at which point Alvarez got up, went to the front door, closed the door, and locked it. Okay. At this point, I started looking at people in the room. Their facial expression changed. I had this feeling something was going to happen. And I'm standing and I'm saying to myself, oh, shit.
At this moment, we become focused on the situation in terms of our vulnerability. We may feel weak, helpless, have a strong sense of dread, and perhaps we may feel out of control.
I can't remember too much about what was going on around me, but only right in front of me. I think it's called tunnel vision. My eyes locked in on this guy. And when he did, and that's all I could see was him and a gun in front of me, and occasionally when he was hitting me, I would like almost black out. Time slowing down and the tunnel vision, only being able to see him right in front of him and not know what was going on behind me or next to me or around me other than I was focusing right on him. It was kind of scary. You know, I couldn't understand why those things were, why I was feeling or sensing those things.
It can indeed be overwhelming if you do get shot. Some guys give up. They focus on their vulnerability. They think, oh my God, I'm shot. I can't do anything now. But there are other people who get shot, acknowledge the reality and accept it. And they start focusing on their ability and capability to respond. They start focusing on, what can I do now to survive? And what do I need to do?
As soon as I realized that I had been shot, my first reaction was to look and see how badly I was shot. And I pulled my shirt back and I could see a hole in my chest. And I remember thinking, God, I must be about to die. I've got a hole right in my chest where I thought the heart area should be. And I also knew I'd been shot in the leg because my leg hurt and I could see a hole in my pants and blood coming out of my leg. And Bob and I made a decision. We were not going to let someone shoot us and just walk out of there. We were going to do some things on our own. We were going to notify emergency vehicles, which we couldn't get anyone else to help us, and we were also going to try to catch the guys that had shot us.
There's a couple of general principles here. When us human beings focus on a situation in terms of our vulnerability, we feel weak, helpless, and out of control. The more we dwell on our vulnerability, the more the negative emotion associated with fear can start to escalate, and that can lead to panic. But if we focus on the situation in terms of our ability and capability to respond, we feel more balanced and in control, and we can become very strong.
I guess the real problem for me, when I realized there was a serious problem, started when he put his hand in my holster. And that's when I said, oh shit. If he got my gun, I knew I was dead. And I couldn't allow that. I couldn't let him have it. And reacting to that sense of, oh shit, so what am I gonna do? I'm about to be killed. And when I felt that, I just had to do something. And I resolved not to let him have the gun, and I knocked his hand out of the holster. And the fight was on.
When we are faced with a life or death situation, we are capable of pumping up a tremendous amount of strength. Our will to survive, our instinct to survive, mobilizes tremendous power. And there comes a time during a critical incident when you realize you have to respond. You realize what it is you have to do. And you come up with the resolve to do it. This moment of resolve can perhaps be characterized as, here goes.
The fact is, if you're shot and you're alive after being shot, the statistics would indicate that you've got a good chance of making it. The most important thing when you're being shot is to recognize that you have been wounded, that this might not necessarily be a lethal injury, and not to panic. Keep your cool, try and maintain a low profile, remember what your training tells you to do in these circumstances, keep your eye on the objective, and maintain a disciplined state of mind.
If you're shot and you know it, you're conscious and you're still alive, you can keep responding. If you're shot and you know it, the odds are you're going to survive. So it's important you keep responding, you keep going, you don't give up.
Well, I guess it was an instinctive type reaction on my part, that I knew I was in a situation, I knew I had to do certain things to get out of that situation, and I knew I wanted to survive it. And I don't think there was much time to think. I mean, I recognized there were certain things going on, and that survival was probably a paramount instinct. And be it whatever, the life experience up until that point or what, it's hard to say, but I knew I had to survive, and I knew my instinct was survive at all costs.
I faced off on Alvarez, and to this day I could remember. I went to fire my weapon, and I heard this click, no ammo. I looked him straight in the eye, and I heard a shot, and I felt some pain in my chest. It sent me right against the wall, my right chest. I had to do something. I had my gun in my hand. I went to hit him with my gun, at which point I got hit again, a second time in the chest, and it sent me up in the air. I remember falling down. I remember looking at him. I guess he was going to put one in my head, at which time I blacked out for a second.
The final phase is response. We follow through with our action and win. We may be experiencing fear, but we can still stay focused on what's happening around us. We can still stay focused on our actions and our tactics. And we keep going until the danger is over.
6 months out of the Dam Academy, I'm working with a federal agency, and I'm supposed to go in. I'm supposed to go in and make a buy. Just simple buy and walk, 4 ounces of heroin, no big deal. The guy turns out to be a Mex-Fed, Mexican Federal Judicial Police. We're negotiating, everything's fine. And for some reason, one of the surveillance officers takes a look through the window. He peeks through the window. The guy sees him and takes him out through the window. He's yelling at me to cover the window, and that's when I shot him the first time. And he just turns around and looks at me. I shoot him twice, and he starts shooting back at me. Now he snaps that I'm not with him. I shoot him 5 times before he goes down. And I'm shooting him with a 45. I expect him to just drop, like I see in the movies. He don't drop. He's standing there toe-to-toe with me. Luckily, he missed.
Given all the gunshot wounds that a person can receive, there are relatively few that are instantly lethal. A gunshot wound to the brain, one to the high spinal cord, a big bullet wound to the heart, which blows away a substantial part of your heart, a close-range shotgun wound to the belly. These are the types of wounds that are going to be lethal and very quickly lethal. A low-caliber injury to the arm or the leg is not going to kill you. Now, to get into a trauma center, you've got to be seriously injured in most circumstances. Many patients with gunshot wounds don't need to be in trauma centers. So the statistics indicate that if you are alive after the gunshot and are able to be transported from the scene, then you've got a pretty good chance of surviving your gunshot wound.
A few months later, I'm doing an undercover deal, and that's when I got shot. And I remember falling. The guy shot me. I went down, and I can see him pointing at me again. He shot the second time, and he hit me in the stomach. And I'm thinking that I gotta get up. And what's going through my mind at that time is, I'm bigger than the first guy that I shot. I shot him with a 45. He never went down. You know, it took 5 shots for him to go down. And it's going through my mind, get up, get up. If that guy could do it, you can do it. You know, get up, shoot the son of a bitch. Do something. And so I did.
The will to survive mobilizes us in different ways. We can get scared, but we can turn that fear into tremendous strength. Under peak stress conditions, we can use our anger to survive. Anger and rage pumps up tremendous power.
But I decided I wasn't going to take any more of that, and I got up off the floor and I went out the front door after him. I was very angry at him at that time. Not to say that I wasn't scared, but I'd gotten over being scared somewhere along the line. I had been very frightened. I knew that I was in, as I said, I was in a mortal situation. I had to fight or die. Time kind of slowed down. I was able to remember to plant my feet, to get the right grip on the gun, although I don't think I did those things consciously. When the sights came up before my eyes and his target, his back going up the sidewalk, it was somewhat like being on the firing range. I did everything by the book, by rote.
For most, things appear to slow down. What's actually happening is our thoughts are racing 2 to 10 times faster than usual. We are capable of thinking a multitude of thoughts on a multitude of topics in a microsecond. And of course, that only helps with our survival.
The human body has a natural response to danger, particularly danger that might involve a threat to life, and that's called the fight or flight response. And essentially what that does, it is the adrenal gland that secretes certain hormones, and it makes our muscles tense. It sort of sharpens our eyesight, increases our heart rate, and makes us best able to respond to our external environment. It also has some protective influence on our internal milieu. It helps maintain the blood pressure and the circulation to the brain, increases the metabolism of sugar. It's good for you. And that's going to happen when you feel pain or you feel that your life is threatened.
I didn't know whether or not I was hurt real bad or whether or not the fact that I didn't feel all that bad, but I didn't know if this feeling that I had of not feeling so bad was caused by some magical adrenaline high or whether or not I really wasn't hurt. So it was I didn't know how I really was, and that the fear of not knowing, I think, caused me more concern than anything.
Okay, the following things might happen when you get shot. You might feel your heart beating. You don't normally feel it. Your mouth might get dry. Your palm might get sweaty. You might feel more alert. You might feel a little bit dizzy. But some of these things, most of these things are quite normal, and they are the fight or flight response. They are things that can help you and they are there to protect us from a dangerous environment.
Well, the one in the leg, it caught me in the upper right thigh. It went in square on the muscle and went right to the bone, and it was very painful. Even when I walked, it hurt. The one on the chest was different. I really didn't even feel it hurting at all. Which was some of the concern I had.
You know, depending on the caliber and the amount of tissue damage done and the actual tissues injured, the feelings, the actual sensations you feel where being shot can vary. A soft tissue wound you might not necessarily feel. I mean, there's the also of somebody putting their hand down and seeing the blood, and that might be the first indication because you haven't actually felt something very serious. A bullet wound through a bone, on the other hand, can be of considerable pain. Bones just hurt a lot. But let me tell you, nobody's ever died of a broken bone. And if you feel the pain associated with a broken bone, it's generally good. I mean, first of all, you're conscious, you know that you're feeling pain from a broken bone, and those are all, generally speaking, fairly good things if you have been shot.
Just because you're shot doesn't mean that you're going to die. You can keep going. In the incident with Bob and I, we were not going to leave that bar having been shot and not capture someone that could at least put the case together later. So we made a decision that we were going to be law enforcement officers and capture the two guys that shot us for the investigation that was going to pursue.
Nobody wants to get shot. And of course, you're going to do everything possible to avoid getting shot. But if you do get shot, you can survive. Why? Because you can start preparing for it now.
I had rehearsed being involved in a shooting 1,000,000 times in my mind. I never really wanted to be in one, but I knew that if I was in one, that I did want to win.
1020 Atlanta, I've just been shot. I've also shot the suspect. I'm here in the under 285. I have been shot. I've shot the perpetrator. I'm in the ambulance. Hurry.
And I can remember my radio broadcast. I had a lot of comments about it later, about how concise and articulate it was. And some troopers that were on the air then even said that they thought they had misunderstood me, that I couldn't be shot because I was really too calm in my radio broadcast. I even said please after asking for an ambulance.
When it comes right down to it, you can train yourself. Mental conditioning is what will help you learn your tactics to the point that they are second nature and instinctual. How do you do it? Well, first, visualize yourself in a critical situation. Then, you go to the next step. This is where you live it. Now, instead of watching yourself, you jump inside the movie, and you see it, hear it, and feel it, as if you were actually there. In this way, these mental conditioning techniques create a muscle memory.
I made a choice, a conscious choice, to get off the bus and go to the patrol car to reload my gun because I only had one shot left. And at that time, I had an ankle holster on with a loaded 6-shot revolver in it. But in all my mental rehearsing, I had limited myself with that gun. I had only thought I would use that gun if an assailant were to take my duty revolver away from me. So by limiting my options when I came in under pressure and under stress, I started falling back on what was available to me, I think, in my mind's computer, and that wasn't available to me because I'd never programmed it in.
Mental conditioning is extremely crucial in surviving any critical incident. It is important that agents practice their tactics and techniques over and over and over again until they become automatic, second nature. Let's consider another situation. You're shot and you're down and you can't move. But you can still respond mentally. What do? Whatever you can to survive. Whatever you can do to stay alive until the trauma people come and get you patched up.
I didn't want to fall asleep. I was in no pain, but I couldn't get up. I knew I was losing blood. I saw the blood coming out of my chest, out of my back, There was blood coming out of my arm. I tasted blood in my mouth. I was starting to get cold and nervous. And I guess the pain kept me awake.
Lose 10% of your blood and you might feel a little bit faint. It's like donating blood. It's no big deal. If you lose 20%, you might feel a little bit faint, a little bit dizzy. Your heart rate's certainly going to go up a little. Lose 40% of your blood and you're in trouble. You're beginning to lose consciousness as a result of that.
You know, if you ever ridden inside an ambulance, that sound echoes. Today I even hate that sound every time I hear an ambulance. While I was in the ambulance, the pain started. I knew I couldn't breathe. I knew I didn't want to fall asleep. Looking back on it, I think the pain kept me alive. It kept me awake, because I felt that if I fell asleep, I would die.
The usual situation is we do not feel fear while the situation is going down. We are too busy surviving. It's after the situation is over that we perhaps experience the fear. And we have the shakes, the tremors, and other stress come-down reactions.
In the hospital, in the emergency room, you're lying on this table. A couple hours before, you're a big federal agent, and now they strip your clothes off. You become like a piece of meat. And you say to yourself, why? Why me?
And the emotional impact of our vulnerability does confront us. And it is normal to experience a heightened sense of danger, extreme anger, nightmares, flashbacks, difficulty sleeping, anxiety, and other kinds of stress reactions. It is important to realize that these are normal reactions to abnormal situations.
You have to be prepared. This is not a game. It's not the movies. Guys, this is for real. If you're not scared, you guys got a problem.
Do something. You get hurt, get mad, think about your family, think about your girlfriend, whatever you want to think about. Yourself. Get mad, get up, spit at him, throw a glass at him. Do something. Do something and make sure that if you're going to go, he's going with you.
As important and equally important in my mind is the ability to be prepared mentally that you're not going to take it. You don't have to go down and stay down. Don't let them put their hands on you. If they want to hurt you, hurt them worse first.
If you're looking up and you can see that, you still see things, see the sky, and you got to figure you're alive. And if you react the correct way, you're going to stay alive. And the idea is to stay alive.
If you are not prepared to go out there and use deadly force, and more importantly, to have it used against you, and to come back from the shock of that and go on and to do your job, then today may be as good a day as any other for you to start selling life insurance or find some other honorable vocation.
By now you've seen enough to realize survival is no trick. It's not a Hollywood stunt, it's for real. And it's something you have to live with, breathe, and prepare for. Every day you're on the job. Face it, the possibility of danger is out there. It may not happen this week. It may not involve you, but it is out there. Your one chance of beating it is to be prepared, to be psychologically fit, mentally tough, and never, never give up. It starts now. It starts with digging deep into yourself to find steel, to uncover and strengthen your determination to do whatever you've got to do to survive. It must be a conscientious decision. Your choice. No surrender. The will to live, as these survivors testified, is your strongest weapon. Use it for your life.